Welcome to the Silicon Slopes Conversations. We're here with Deneece Huftalin, who is the president of Salt Lake Community College. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good.
Happy summer.
Happy summer. School's still in session, though.
Yeah, summer semester is on, but it still feels like summer a little bit.
Yeah. Summer semester is the sneaky way to get ahead.
Very much so, and it's shorter. You can do shorter classes. It's the same price unless if you're a non-resident, you pay resident tuition during the summer, so that's a bonus. But yeah, it's a great way to just keep going, don't stop. Summer gaps are kind of old school. You should just go year-round and get it done.
Yeah. And it's my opinion that the professors are a little bit more lax during summer as well. I don't know if you can confirm or deny that.
I cannot confirm or deny that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you everyone for coming today. We've had a lot of conversations over the years, so we'll continue on some of those, and then we're going to talk about a lot of new things. But as anniversaries go, 75 years is pretty good.
Yes.
What does that mean for Salt Lake Community College?
So 1948, September 14th, 1948, we opened our doors downtown. We had one building, and we were mostly serving men coming back from the war and who wanted to retrain or reskill. So workforce training has always been on our mission. In the late 80s, we had moved to a more comprehensive community college model. But yeah, so we're celebrating 75 years. We started in January of 23. We're going to end on September 14th, the actual birthday. And we've had all sorts of celebrations. We've commissioned a new book over the last 25 years. We have parties going on throughout the year. September 14th, we'll have a big press conference, hopefully with Governor Cox and others. And on August 25th is the big bash with our students, our alums, our donors, just really celebrating the great work that we've been doing and the next 75 years that are ahead of us. So it's a really exciting time for us.
Yeah, it is a big accomplishment, and I don't know the numbers, but I guess it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of students that have gone through SLC.
We're trying to find, here's a little plug, we're trying to find our oldest alum. So if you have access to anyone who is an elderly person and might have come to Salt Lake Community College in the late 40s, early 50s, call me, because we would love to invite them to the celebration and celebrate them and hear their stories. We have some great faculty that have been around for a long time that have told me stories about how it first started, and just amazing experiences they had with students that they still connect with, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, the network and the fun and the connections of going to school is worth way more than the education, in my opinion. The education's like a cherry on the top, but I'm sure we all have amazing relationships from that time of our life.
Yeah, anyone remember a college professor that's changed their life or helped them feel like they could succeed? The heads are nodding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just if they're still alive, reach out and tell them that. I think that's really important.
For sure. Salt Lake Community College renamed its School of Applied Technology to Salt Lake Technical College recently. Why and what's the result been?
So we've always, as I said, in 1948, that's how we started as Utah Technical College, and we've always had that mission. In the late 80s, as I mentioned, when we started doing transfer courses and we did gen ed, and a lot of students started coming to us to do their gen eds and then move on, which is what Garrett did. That technical mission still stayed, but I think it kind of got buried over the years. And so as the technical colleges emerged and became, a little bit more noticeable, Mountain Land, Davis Tech, Ogden Weber, they're all doing great things. We were still doing those things, but we were doing them in a kind of a hidden way under the umbrella of Salt Lake Community College. So last year, we really started rebranding Salt Lake Tech. We're trying to create a little bit more footprint and kind of face of that. So our West Point campus, which is where we do a lot of the technical training, so truck driving, welding, electronics, diesel, that's a beautiful campus. We refer to it as West Point, which it is, but we may start to rebrand that actual space as Salt Lake Tech. We also do a lot of training on our Taylorsville Redwood campus. So the idea is that if you have friends, family, or you yourself are thinking, I need to go to Mountain Land Tech to get that certificate. No, you don't have to leave Salt Lake County. You can stay right here, and Salt Lake Tech has those same kinds of programs. So we just wanted to elevate the profile a little bit. The thing about Salt Lake Tech that a lot of people don't know, this is true for all technical colleges, the legislature subsidizes it at a much higher level. So tuition is really, really low. plus we have technical college scholarships. So they're shorter term, you can get into them faster, and almost all of them are like very, very, very low cost. So it's a great, great way for people that need upward mobility, need to be upskilled or retrained to access that.
Yeah. And I view that as I've got a lot of friends and cousins and family, as we all do, that they went to a few classes at SLCC for English or art history or whatever,
Yep.
and it is not their jam.
Yep.
They can weld and they can work on machines and probably make more money
Yeah.
doing that. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, which all organizations need to be, including schools, that was a good pivot to, all right,
Yeah.
here's this demographic.
Yeah, and I think, again, we've always done it, so I don't want to dismiss all of the efforts of our faculty and students that have been with us since, 50s doing that, but I think there's a bigger realization now about the value of the trades, quote unquote, and the flexibility and the affordability of them and the movement into the workforce that we all know the skilled workforce is for years that people have been complaining that we have that big gap. So economic drivers, everybody interested in coming to Utah wants that kind of skilled-based workers, and you can get them right there with us. The other piece of that, I focus a lot on electronics and diesel, but healthcare, the whole idea of healthcare, medical assisting, medical coding, those really short-term CNA, that's also a way in the tech college that you can get into the industry and then keep building on your career.
And my experience with folks that have gone to Salt Lake Community College over the years is it's a big bump in their pay and their happiness in life, and just like that next step, right? Like going from flipping hamburgers at Wendy's
Yep.
to there's so many avenues that people could explore through Salt Lake Community College.
Yeah.
And in a short amount of time, it changes the trajectory of their lives pretty significantly.
Yeah, I mean, we all know the transformative power of education, but a lot of times people think about college, and to the folks that you mentioned that, K-12 just, they couldn't wait to get out. It wasn't the way they wanted to learn. That's an opportunity, Salt Lake Tech, very different kind of learning. But even just folks that are trying to figure out how to get into an industry, the entry level of an industry. Right now, you can make a ton of money at In-N-Out Burger, right? The wage pressures are so high, so we have a hard time getting people to take the opportunity cost to come back to college. But in the long run, that In-N-Out Burger job's not going to work. At some point, you're going to realize that. So getting in with a short-term certificate, keeping your job, upskilling, getting the raise, coming back, getting an associate's degree, getting another raise, getting the BA, other raise, that kind of upward mobility is huge, and it changes generations. And I'm so proud of this, a moment of pride. We just had our commencement in early May. A little over 3,300 graduates this year with either certificates or degrees, and almost 1,500 of those were first-generation students. So that's a generational poverty lever, right? That those students, kids, will have a very different experience in the workforce than they've had, which is cool.
Absolutely. And higher education, I went to the Salt Lake Community College in 2005, 2006, and then went up to the University of Utah, which is a huge conduit for them.
Yep.
We all know that.
Yes.
Since then, and even then it was starting, you could hear it a little bit of like, this model is good for some, not great for others, but it's going to need to adapt. Mm-hmm. And the rigidity of it with each passing year seems less and less, and the flexibility and the catering to the students is more and more. You and your team, obviously, this is a moving target. Yeah. I think it's established, there's going to have to be some entrepreneurial thought that goes into this. How do you guys strategize as an organization, a big organization, and try to look around the corner and see what the future entails?
Well, so we have our mission is always workforce and transfer, and those are two different kind of ways of learning, right? So workforce is always evolving because we have non-credit workforce, we have technical credit workforce, and industry's moving, and so we have to, sunset programs and ramp up programs pretty quickly. Our demographics are shifting. So, for instance, we have a huge refugee population. The Salt Lake County demographics are changing rapidly. Latinx population is growing significantly. So we have to be mindful of language issues, for instance, our ESL and building contextualized English into our training. So instead of You used to go to ESL classes for 16 weeks, and it was very rigid. It was just like K-12. It was bound by semesters. It was really rigid. Now we say, okay, you know what? We're going to teach you ESL quick, and we're going to teach you contextualize ESL along with truck driving. So you're going to learn English as it relates to truck driving. You're not going to have to conjugate every verb and learn the entire language and then go learn how to truck drive. That's ridiculous. So how do you kind of merge those two things and integrate it? That's a new way of thinking. Our old faculty, our seasoned faculty, that's not how they were trained to teach ESL. So we have to bring them along and help them understand that. But I think it's industry driven, that flexibility. It's demographic driven. Who are your students? How are you responding to them? Refugees, we used to say, bring your high school transcript and we'll study it. We'll give you credit. Refugees don't have high school transcripts. They fled their country. They don't have access to some of those kind of things that higher ed has always put in place. So we have to be a little bit more, we have to interrogate our processes to remove barriers and be more flexible that way too.
Yeah. And when I went there, I remember a psychology class, and there was a music class. I still remember these professors, and because they were kind of weird and quirky in a really fun way, but I still have the papers that I think I got B minuses generally, maybe a B here or there. But it was still great to learn the kind of the building blocks of how the whole world works.
Yeah.
And that's never going to go away. It's always going to be an option. But, sitting through 4 years of English or humanities, it didn't pay out for me. I pivoted as a career, but it was still wildly useful.
Well,
how do you weave the two together?
Yeah, and I think general education often gets kind of short shrift. Like students say, I'm just getting my generals, like they're getting them out of the way. They can't wait to get them out of the way. And then they're going to go, learn meaningful things or relevant things. And we talk to our faculty a lot about help people understand how is philosophy relevant to your job? How is a foreign language relevant to your job, right? And I think the relevance is embedded in all of what the employers tell us they want. We want people that can problem solve. We want people that can work with diverse cultures. We want people that can communicate well, writtenly and oral. That happens in gen ed classes. So I'm always trying to kind of, do a little cheerleading for the gen ed classes because yes, they feel can be ambiguous for some or abstract, but they give you the skills that whatever career you're going to go into, you're going to need. As a leader especially, right, as you move up in a corporation or whatever. So I always want to kind of defend the gen ed criteria. Now, could we do that differently? Yeah, right now, we used to do 2 years gen ed and then you go into your majors. Now we're saying, you know what, gen ed should probably be through your whole baccalaureate degree. So let's move it all the way up into the U. You don't have to get through all of it with us. Our engineering program is like this. You do some with us and you keep doing it at the U when you transfer. So there's some modifications there too.
Yeah. And then in the future, when you're establishing your career and you're at a cocktail party and somebody says something about Thomas Jefferson or Freud,
you don't think they're
you
a
can
band?
actually have a decent conversation, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is what I do, but I'm also a little bit well-rounded.
Yeah.
And it's fun, and it's important.
It's important.
It's so important.
It's really important just for our civilization. I mean, I think I don't want to go down too political a road right now, but I think we're in a time right now where divisiveness is so heavy and people are mad and people can't communicate. And I think the more you understand about history and philosophy and the good and the bad of our country, and the more you can understand a human experience from another perspective, the better you're going to be as a human being, right? As you raise your kids, as you're a parent, as you maybe are a faith leader, as whatever you're doing, you're going to have more empathy, you're going to have more grace, and you're going to be, you're just going to be a better contributor to the community than someone who's just looking at utilitarian, just teach me the skill, that's all I need to know. No, the world's a bigger place than that. You just need to know more than that. Open
Absolutely.
your mind.
And you only have so many years in your life where you can do that, and it's like the perfect time.
Yeah.
When Russia invaded Ukraine, there's a bunch of people that were just flabbergasted. It's like, where have you been?
Yeah.
Like, do you not see history that this is going to happen?
This is what happens.
Time and time again. and they were just like so shocked that this could happen in their life. And I'm like,
and for so refugees is a good example of that. We had a while ago, I don't know, 10 years ago, we had a lot of students coming from Venezuela because of the political strife in Venezuela. And if you weren't paying attention to kind of geopolitical things happening, you don't have to know everything, but just paying attention to the fact what's happening in other countries that don't have the kind of system that we have. Being able to kind of see that and compare it, even at that level, helps you understand those people coming. Why do we need to help them? Why do we need to support them? What are they going through? What is it, the lifestyle that you have not ever had to deal with that they're dealing with?
Yeah. Well-rounded. You mentioned briefly like your interaction with the employers, like the broader ecosystem here, the people that need your graduates.
Yeah.
Two-way street on that one, right? Like they might tell you what they need, or you might be able to pull it out of them, kind of again like trying to forecast in the future. But how do you and your team and the entire campus interact with employers to keep them abreast of what you're doing and also adapt to what they need?
Yeah, we do it, there's some formulaic ways we do it. We have program advisory committees in most of our kind of workforce arenas. So we've got literally an advisory group of CEOs or HR people or content experts from industry that sit around and check in with our curriculum and say, that's old school, this is where we're headed, so you have to ramp up here. So there's some curricular things that we do. But even at the higher level, I'll give you a good example. So the University of Utah is opening a big hospital complex in West Valley. Literally 3 years ago, Michael Good and I were talking about we're going to need medical trained people in West Valley, in Kearns, in Hunter. So how do you ramp up our medical training? All of that was at our Jordan campus. So we started moving it over to our West Valley city so that we could train in medical assisting, medical coding, CNA. So then residents don't have to go across the valley. They can stay right there. They can get trained. And we know that hospital, as it comes out of the ground, is going to employ thousands of people. And now they're going to be trained to stay right in their backyard. So kind of, curricular, changes and adaptations, but also kind of looking out to what's coming and how do we need to be prepared for that and how do we need to ramp up. We're trying to expand our nursing to 24/7 year-round nursing to try to get more nurses out there. We're looking at our teaching programs. I mean, you can tell, the industries that are either growing and new or have always been around and are dying for new people, right? Teaching and nursing being one of those.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who's an accountant, and he's like, there's not that many accountants.
Yep.
And so this is just, again, a case of history. It's a supply and demand, right? Like maybe if this continues for 4 years, it's going to get to the point where those that are accountants are going to start getting paid double.
Yeah.
Because there's a scarcity.
Well, the other thing that's interesting, so Goldman Sachs came to us a few years ago and said, we've realized we've been recruiting out of BYU and Wharton and all of the, top schools, and we've realized that there's some of our positions, they really only need an associate's degree in finance or in accounting. And so they started recruiting with us, but they'd never even thought of us before because the baccalaureate degree was like the MBA was the prize degree. And I think industry leaders are starting to realize that there's different levels of training needed across their industry. And why are they, breaking their backs to recruit and pay at a level of where you really just need an associate's degree. And so helping industry leaders think about that too and kind of get involved with us at that level.
In a few minutes, we'll open it up to the audience for Q&A, so get your courage up and your questions ready. I think it's cool from my perspective, outside looking in, that all of the colleges, institutions in the state get along well and are collaborative. My experience is that it's the strongest between Salt Lake Community College and the University of Utah. If that is true, then this question would be like, how do you guys maintain that? How do you guys work together to get the students to where they need to be?
Yeah, it's a fabulous partnership, and it's been that way. Prior to being the president, I was the vice president for student affairs at Salt Lake Community College, and we had wonderful relationships with their administration at that point. But I think the University of Utah, it's very clear that their graduating class in many of their disciplines, half their graduating class started with us and came to them, and now we're finishing with them. So they recognize the transfer pipeline and the value that we provide. And so I think they realize they've got to be good partners. So we've actually done much better with articulation over the last 8 years. It's gotten much stronger. What we're thinking about now, President Randall and I are thinking about even taking it outside of curriculum. For many of our first-gen students, it's yes, they can get through Salt Lake Community College, they start to get academically confident, and then they go to U, and it scares them to death. It's too big, they don't know where to park, they walk in and the classes are huge, and they need to kind of make that community smaller. So we're talking about co-curricular communities that students can transfer into too, so that helps them be more successful. The biggest partnership is coming up this fall. At our Harriman campus, we're opening our Juniper building, which is only first of its kind in the state, where Salt Lake Community College and the University of Utah will be in the same building. So students can start, get their associate's degree with us, walk across the hall and finish their baccalaureate. And that, we've been hoping for that since 2009. That's a long time coming. And it started with David Pershing, and then Ruth Watkins was a fabulous partner, and she and I really are the ones that got that off the ground and got it funded. And now with President Randall, he's been working with us to align the programs and make sure that's happening. So August 24th, there'll be a big, let's see, do I have that right? There's so many dates right now between 75th and Harriman. I think August 4th, there's a public open house. If you're in that area and want to wander by, the 4th we'll be doing public tours through that whole building. And then on the 7th is the actual ribbon joining between the University of Utah and us at that building, which is fabulous. I mean, Harriman City, they've been a remarkable partner. And I love it because it's innovative. It'll cost less. It'll keep college affordable. But I also love that students aren't driving across the valley polluting our air. They're staying in Harriman, and they're staying right there locally. And they can run to childcare, and they can pick up their groceries, and they can just stay right in their community, but still access higher ed.
Yeah. Kind of an underlying theme of today is like flexibility and adapting. I remember sitting in the first day of class in economics or political science, and you start to make friends, and there's always the people from West Jordan and South Jordan and Harriman, and it's like, yeah, I can see where I'm going to drive, but that's an hour away.
I've driven it. It's not a pleasant thing to do.
Yeah, now they don't have to do that. And I'd say, why don't you live closer? And like, well, it doesn't make sense.
And think about all the folks, I mean, look at Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain, that whole area. I mean, they can just come up that road and they don't have to go across the valley to UVU. They don't have to go to the U. They can stay right there. I think that's just huge for those communities. And I know that the high school pipeline in those communities is just burgeoning. The principals can't wait for us to be there because they've got folks that want to go to college. They don't have transportation or can't afford it, and they want to be able to stay right in their local neighborhood.
Yeah, and that'll be like butts and seats this fall, right?
This fall, yep.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Artificial intelligence seems to be in the news a little bit, and it seems to be correlated with like education and cheating and skirting. How are you, and if you want to weigh in on other, university presidents dealing with this, and how do you think the whole thing will look?
How many of you have been on ChatGPT? Everyone, almost everyone. Cool. Well, it's here to stay. It's going to continue to change. I'm lucky that I have a couple faculty, probably more, but 2 for sure, that are way ahead of the game. We have a business faculty member and we have a writing faculty member who have been doing workshops with our faculty for probably almost 9 months now about, hey, it's here, students are going to use it. Here's how you adapt your curriculum and your assignments to allow them to use it as a tool, but still be able to write and express themselves, using their original content, which is what we care about, right? If you really want an educated citizenry, you can't rely on the robots to do it for you, right? They've got to be able to formulate a sentence. So you're still going to have to learn how to write. ChatGPT is certainly going to help us all in lots of different ways. I was just in a hiring committee, literally, this happened maybe a month ago. We were in a hiring committee, and my assistant said, you need to write a letter to the applicants that we're not forwarding on to a next interview. And one of our data scientists next to me said, just have ChatGPT write it. And so I said to my assistant, have ChatGPT write it. And she literally, by the end of that conversation, 5 minutes later, had a letter drafted, which I edited a bit because I wanted it to be, I love to write, so I'm not going to use that. But for those kind of really formulaic, kind of short, basic things that really don't need a lot of creativity, it's amazing. I have lots of fears about it, don't get me wrong. But we're figuring out a way to make it useful, and we know students are going to use it, but how do we still get them to learn what we want them to learn?
Yeah. As a president of a big institution, you know everything that's going on, and all of the acronyms and where the funding comes from and all of that. One of those is HSI status.
Yes.
We were talking a little bit about that, but what does the acronym mean, and why is it important for you guys?
Yeah, so HSI means Hispanic Serving Institution. It's a federal designation. We're currently what's called an emerging HSI. So it's really, the threshold is when 25% of your student body identifies as Hispanic or Latinx. And when you get to that threshold, so a quarter of your student body, you become eligible for the designation federally, and that unlocks all sorts of grant opportunities and opportunities for allocations that can help you serve those students even better. So we're very close. Within the next year or two, we will actually have about 25%. So we've been, over the last 3 years, thinking of what does that mean? You can't just get the money and run. You've got to actually adopt practices, you have to interrogate policies, you have to change your culture so that Latinx, Hispanic students feel comfortable and feel like they belong. So our admissions application, you can do it in Spanish. Our financial aid information is all in Spanish. We know there's 170 languages or something spoken in the Salt Lake County School District. So it's a matter of shifting your culture, being aware of the cultural competencies of your faculty member so that those students can come, they can be successful, they can graduate, and they can move on. So we're really looking forward to that. It's an important step for us. There's lots of really successful HSIs across the nation, and as our demographics change, rather, we just need to be mindful of that. And it's not a scary thing. It's an exciting opportunity for us to just do better by all of our students. We know that when we make things better for students that may have been underrepresented in higher ed, it benefits everyone. There's not a zero-sum game here. It benefits everyone.
Yeah. All right, let's open it up for questions.
So one of the things higher ed always struggles with, especially in tech, is staying up to date with curriculum. That seems especially hard given, how quickly ChatGPT and AI, generative AI, is progressing. I'm curious, you've talked about the plagiarism potential side of things, but in terms of curriculum development or infusing this into the coursework, is there a plan that you guys have for that?
Well, I think it's hitting certain disciplines faster than others. So we were talking about healthcare, for instance, and we know our healthcare systems are already thinking about in terms of AI, and let's say nursing, for instance, right? How do you adopt that into the actual discipline of your practice? And it's going to have to back engineer that into our training programs. So we rely heavily. One of the things I love about our faculty is many of them are adjunct for us. They're part-time, and they're actually in industry, and they're teaching for us. And that relevancy is critical. So I think we're going to rely on people in industry, hopefully, coming to teach for us and kind of helping us lead out in those in those kind of generative adaptations of our curriculum. I think it's a hard thing to do because it's moving so fast, and the people that are on the front lines are often not educators, they're in industry, and we can often not compete with the salaries that they're getting, right? And so we are at risk for being, irrelevant or obsolete, and we're always constantly trying to bring industry in, even if they won't teach for us, at least bring them in to help us think about the curriculum and adapt it to be more relevant. I don't know if that helps, but it's a constant challenge.
Yeah, is that like an advisory board or kind of?
Yeah, so we have program advisory boards, and if any of you are interested, whether that's in engineering or software development, whatever your specialty is, if you're interested in that, we're always looking for new folks to help us on those program advisory committees.
Hi, Erin Stanley with New Lane University. We're an online university based here in Lehigh. The number of some college no degree is just growing.
Yep.
But I've been really impressed with what SLCC and UVU are doing to kind of innovate on that front. What are you doing, or what have you found successful in re-engaging that student population?
Yeah, well, online is for many, that's the way to do it for many, right? Well, we reach out. We know, we look at our data all the time to say who was here and is no longer here, and we're constantly doing outreach to those people. We actually think Harriman campus will be another place for that, because even though the high school pipelines are the obvious audience, there's so much growth out there, and there's a lot of people that have some college no degree. So we're saying to them, we don't know where you opted out, whether it was the associate degree level or the bachelor's degree level, but wherever you opted out, either we can help you at SLCC or the U can help you. So we're trying to get them back. It's all about marketing and outreach, and we have contact center and text messages and, geofencing with, reaching out that way, social media, to try to get them back to school. What I say, and it's just in time. You don't come back to school until you finally figure out, oh my gosh, I've got to go back to school, right? But I often say to folks who have some college no degree, 50 credits on your resume is very great, but I'm not going to hire you because you have 50 credits. I'm going to hire you because you have a certain degree that I want or a certain certificate that I want. So we are all about access, but we're also about completion and keeping students there long enough that they can actually get their degree so that they can get that earning power and they can get in the door. More and more and more, you know this, in hiring, there's that first screening process, and if you don't meet minimums, you're out. You're not going to, no, it doesn't matter if you've got a great interview shtick, you're not even going to get in the door. So getting that certificate and coming back to finish it online is a big deal for us. And this is, I think, the first year where our online population eclipsed all other sites. So we have very few students that take all online. That's not our thing. But we have a lot of students that take like one class in person and one class online. And they're just kind of trying to juggle that way.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what would you like your legacy to be as president of SLCC?
Oh, that's a nice question. Well, I just am all about college being seen as a place that belongs to you. I think college was founded as an elitist activity, right? Getting a degree was founded historically as only for certain people. And where our workforce is and where that education is so important just as a citizenry, I guess I would like, and this is really a community college mission, so it's not my legacy, but I would like to think that I have maintained or even enhanced the sense across the Salt Lake County, which is our service area, that you can afford college, you can access college, and we will help you succeed. No matter where you come from, what your background is, what your academic confidence is, whatever, we will get you there. I hope that I can enhance that while I'm president. And I think we've done some really cool things to make that happen. Financially, we've pulled all sorts of financial levers to make it way more affordable than any other place in the state. I think our language issues, bilingualism, I just think we've done a lot. Geographic access, so wherever you are in the county, you can come to one of our sites. I think we've done that.
Just thinking about general education and AI and how they correlate. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about what you think about the importance of being kind of generally educated in order to navigate AI and the context and understanding history and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I am not an expert on AI, so I don't know if I have an answer to that. I mean, I think we are all going to be charged with discerning what we're reading or seeing for fake stuff, right? It's happening right now. Things are happening right now where you have to really stop and think and challenge and not just accept it blindly. And I actually think lots of people don't do that right now. And I think that's part of our problem. So in some ways, general education helps you with enough knowledge that you can kind of interrogate that, whatever you're reading, and say, hold the phone, that is not a correct fact. AI is pulling from not curated material, right? It's pulling from whatever anybody entered. So it's all over the map in terms of accuracy. So it becomes really important that you can discern fact from fiction, and you can unpack an argument that doesn't logically flow. And you can't do that if all you can do is read. You have to learn to think. So that's what I think Gen Ed does, right? It builds your capacity to critically think and go, oh, wait a minute, that's not true, That's not the leader of that Putin isn't, whatever you're reading. Some people, I think, just read it and go, oh, that's true. No. There's a lot of fiction disguised as fact, and hopefully Gen Ed helps people unpack that.
Yeah,
It's
if you
kind
want,
of scary, I think.
yeah, for sure. If you want to get swindled and be confused the rest of your life, like avoid the general education and just like rely on AI.
Yeah.
Well, this was a real conversation, real questions. Thank you from the audience. No AI generation here.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
President Huftalin, for your time, and congrats to you and your team. Big year, a lot of stuff going on. Really appreciate you guys and all you do for the community.
Can I do one more plug?
Yes.
If anybody has September 11th available, we have the Gail Miller Leadership Cup golf tournament at Hidden Valley. It's a fabulous golf tournament. People love it. And it all goes to student scholarships. We have our students out on the course. It's a beautiful course. You get to meet our students, and you get to have a great day of golf. So,
I've heard great things about it. There's
Yeah.
good swag and there's good opportunities
Yeah.
if you play well
Yep.
to
big
to walk
prize,
away a
big
winner.
valuable prizes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, President Huftalin. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Cool.